Hey, folks, and welcome into episode 15 of the Longhorn Mailbag. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Horns 24/7 YouTube channel. We're answering your questions from the board over at horns247.com. Let's jump right into our true false segment from Rangers Dad. As always, with Kansas State coming into town, I went 3-3 last week, so we've been kind of at 500 or just above 500 the last couple of weeks, looking to break things open this week and really get into that 4-1 or 5-0 range, if you will. Obviously, always aiming for 5-0. First question: this game will be decided on the last possession. I'm going true here. 5 out of the last 6 games have been one possession games between Texas and Kansas State. Remember, Texas has won the last 6 meetings against the Wildcats. I think this goes down to the wire once again. 2 really good teams. Texas just overall one of the better teams in the country, and Kansas State one of the hottest teams in the country. Chris Kleiman's team is always ready to go, and they usually tend to give Texas a challenge every year. They have so far during the Steve Sarkisian era. I think they do so again on Saturday. Number 2, the offense will have over 400 total yards of offense. I'm going true here. They got over 400 yards total offense last year against the Wildcats, and the Wildcats have given up that yardage to better offenses that they've played this year. Not necessarily better than Texas, but better than some of the other teams they've played on the schedule. So Mizzou and Oklahoma State went over 400 yards earlier this season. The last 3 games that Kansas State has played, Texas Tech, TCU, and Houston, 3 kind of below medium offenses there. Obviously, Texas Tech has had the injury history. TCU has kind of been on and off, and they've got Josh Hoover, a true freshman, in there at quarterback. And then Houston has Donovan Smith, who is on and off as well. He was certainly on against Texas. Longhorn fans want to forget that, but has had his fair share of struggles too, and they were blanked last week against Kansas State. So I'm going to go true that the offense for the Longhorns goes over 400 yards in this game, because frankly, I think they've shown they can do that with Jonathan Brooks. They didn't get there quite against BYU, but I think they do so this week against Malik Murphy with some more intricate game plan from Steve Sarkisian. Number 3, the Texas defense will force 2 turnovers. I'm going true here. They've got 5 in their last 2 games. I think that if pressure can get to Will Howard and/or Avery Johnson in the backfield, it might force some errant throws from either of them. Howard has not thrown an interception in the last 3 games, but prior to that, he threw at least 1 in every single game so far this season. I don't think Kansas State has seen a defense quite as good as Texas is yet this year, so that might be a challenge for the Wildcat offense at some point in the game to cause them to force at least 2 turnovers. Number 4, Jordan Whittington will catch a pass. I'm going true here as well. We haven't seen a lot of Jordan Whittington as a receiver as of late, and I think this is a game where Texas is going to need a veteran guy like him to be able to make a couple of grabs and try to help them win a ball game. I think Whittington can be used over the middle on crossing routes like he has a lot of his career if you line him up in the slot, and especially with a young quarterback like Malik Murphy. We kind of saw Adonai Mitchell lining up in the slot and hit that hit that slant route over the middle of the field. He scored a touchdown off of it, and Malik Murphy's first pass completion was to Mitchell on a similar play. So I think Jordan Whittington gets some of those snaps maybe when Mitchell needs a breather, and just to simplify everything as much as possible for Malik Murphy, who is still learning to adjust to starting as a quarterback in college football. And last but not least, number 5, the offense will score on all trips inside the 10. I'm going false here. Until we see Texas consistently scoring in that area, I don't think I can say that they're going to score on every single possession. Now, they might score on some possessions that they get down there, but this has been a very difficult area for Texas to come away with points. It's obviously, every situation is unique, and Steve Sarkisian touched on that at his press conference on Monday. But nonetheless, there's going to be points in the game where you just need to take the points no matter who you're playing. Kansas State, certainly you're going to need as many points as you can get because the Wildcats are a very good team that can give Texas a good ball game. So I need to see more success in those situations for me to try and make this true. For now, staying with my false prediction. All right, now on to our questions. Our first one from Horny McHornerson. What adjustments must be made to try and bury Kansas State early and keep Texas in control so that they can afford to rotate depth guys who need experience for a shot to go deep in the postseason? This is a really good question. I had to think a little bit on it. What would it take for Texas to try and bury Kansas State? I'm kind of shifting that into what it's going to take for Texas to beat Kansas State, because I don't think this is a game that they're going to bury the Wildcats away early in. Number one, I think moving the ball efficiently through the air. Kansas State is 75th in passing yards allowed per game, and they have struggled at times with those offenses that I mentioned earlier, like Missouri and Oklahoma State. If Malik Murphy can get comfortable, settle into the game, and start wheeling and dealing, I think that's the best thing that Texas can ask for offensively. Now, they do have a great run defense as well, I believe a top 30 unit against the ground. But Ollie Gordon at Oklahoma State, who is on an absolute tear right now, ran for 136 yards and a touchdown when the Cowboys beat Kansas State earlier this season. I think Jonathan Brooks is in that sort of same elite tier with Ollie Gordon when it comes to the best college football running backs right now. So he can certainly pose a massive threat to Kansas State. I think the Wildcat defense obviously going to be expecting that. So you might see him load the box a little bit more. But Brooks has been a very successful runner even when teams game plan for him. So if JB gets going, that's going to be another positive sign for the Texas offense. And then obviously defensively, the key is really to be on the same page communication-wise. The secondary has given up some deep shots, and a lot of that has been on miscommunications. Even in the short intermediate game, it's just guys failing to slide off a target to another while they go to the other side of the field and communicate who's where on the field in that zone defense that Pete Kwiatkowski loves to run. So they have to be disciplined throughout the entire game if they want to get Kansas State off the board and eventually, like I mentioned earlier, make my true false prediction come true with 2 or more turnovers. And last but certainly not least, we're going to go back from Rangers Dad, another question that he posed on the board. What's the most concerning aspect of Kansas State's game for Texas? Well, I'm going with the fact that Texas has to game plan for 2 quarterbacks in this game that can do a lot of things really well. Overall, Chris Kleeman's team is very well coached, and they're always ready to play. But things get tougher when the Longhorns have to be ready for every snap for 2 quarterbacks that do things very similarly, but also very differently. Will Howard's the guy who will beat you more through the air, a better passer, but he can run as well. So you have to account for that running ability. Kind of not a comparison between him and Dillon Gabriel, but if Texas gives him room to run, he can put up rushing numbers like Dillon Gabriel did in the Oklahoma game. Now, as opposed to Avery Johnson, this is a guy who is just such an amazing runner, and he can really beat you with his legs, but he's not bad through the air as well. So you really have to account for everything there. Maybe that makes things a little bit easier, but it also might make things a lot more difficult if you have to, want certain guys on the field defensively for one quarterback versus another, and then you have to substitute and try to get those guys on the field at the right times. I really think it is an interesting matchup for this Texas defense. It's going to tell us a lot about where this Texas defense is now at midseason form, and it's going to tell us a lot about this Texas team going forward. I think this is where the matchup is won. The Kansas State offense against the Texas State defense, or not the Texas State, excuse me. Kansas State offense, Texas defense. That's where your game's going to be decided, I truly think. So we'll see about that come Saturday. And now, lastly, going to end on, I saw somebody ask about injuries, specifically to Jalen Catalon and Keelan Robinson. In Steve Sarkisian's press conference on Monday, he said that Quinn Ewers, Jalen Catalon, and Ethan Burke are all still week to week, and that's all that he provided. So nothing specific on Catalon. We'll see if he's there on Saturday. He was on the sidelines last week against BYU, but was not in full pads. And then as far as Keelan Robinson go, didn't notice anything on my end about an injury for him. Steve Sarkisian did not talk about it. So not saying that there's not something there, but right now we haven't heard anything about it. So we'll keep it at that. That's going to do it for episode 15 of the Longhorn Mailbag. Thank you again so much for being here with us on the Horns 24/7 YouTube channel. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications so you are the first to know when new content heads your way. For the rest of the crew, I'm Tommy Yarrish. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.